Thank you very much. I wish to thank IHSS and University of Berkeley for giving me this opportunity. I'm not deep into urbanization. I'm a little overwhelmed by presence of scholars of urbanization from sociology, from economics and anthropology and whatnot, and also some geography. What I do is there's some how I gained eligibility to be here. Is that we did a paper, India Development Report is IGIDR's flagship report. There, along with our doctoral student Tushar Agarwal, we wrote a chapter on services-led growth, jobs, and skill in urban India. So, what really inspired us to do this is the idea of services revolution. World Bank is also talking about services revolution, and there is a mention of Izaz Ghani, who has written 2 notes on how services revolution could be also led to inclusive growth. And earlier there was work by Poonam Gupta and others who looked at how India has become a services-led economy. Then at this point, they were just looking at the output growth, looking at how India is led by services sector. Then in that context, what we decided to do, okay, let us look at how jobs, who is creating jobs in the urban sector. So we just took 2 points, that is the 55th round of the NSS, 1999, 2000, and the 66th round of the NSS, that is 2009-10, and see this 10-year period, we just compared 2 sectors, manufacturing versus services sector. Because in the traditional Kuznets structural transformation, agriculture manufacturing comes first and then finally it leads to services. So there was some suggestion in the literature, okay, whether India could skip the stages of growth and straight away jump onto services led growth, and without going through the traditional sequence of agriculture, manufacturing and services. So, what we found was that, so of course we defined manufacturing and services including, we didn't really look at as construction, but simply manufacturing, services, financial, IT enabled services and other services. We made a group and looked at it, and what we found that during this 10-year period, employment in services sector didn't really accelerate. Now also we found that actually there are informality is much greater in incidence of informality was much greater in the services sector, and also we found that the wage inequalities are also greater in the services sector, and service sector is much more skill demanding in terms of education. So this was the kind of findings that we report in our chapter 8 of India Development Report. So anyway, I am not going to present you or bore you with all the details of that, but what I do in this, and also at the same time Tushar Agarwal also did a very recently is forthcoming in Journal of Job and Work. He looked at the population of 15 to 29 and looked at the occasional education people, like those who are having formal occasional education and non-formal education, and see that which sectors are doing. So that brought out some very interesting data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put together some of our results, and I'll bring in some Tushar's results and emphasize certain mundane issues of what could be the policy focus. Okay. Okay, importance of urban India, I don't have to tell you to this audience, but anyway, just for the sake of completeness, I just wrote it down. Of course, there is a lot more controversy on that, but I think that my understanding is that the differences is much more about growth rates, but there is a broad agreement that there is an improved urbanization. Okay, the important point is we found that little less than 50% of the jobs created in India is accounted for by urban India over this period, and more than 85% of the jobs created in business services and more than 80% in manufacturing were in the urban sector. Then who is creating? They ask who is creating jobs. Construction is the fastest growing sector with a share of 10%. Actually, construction sector employment is growing around more than 10% per annum. And transport, communication, and other business services together take the second place. And manufacturing occupies the third place in terms of jobs growth. Its share in total urban employment is 23%. So manufacturing and construction together have about 33% of urban jobs. And other business services include real estate, financial services, IT-enabled services, social and community services. So what type of urban jobs? So I mean, this is Arjun Sen Gupta committee's kind of definition. Includes in that informal jobs. All urban workers are in formal employment. It's broadly defined. In the report, of course, what we do is actually we adopt a slightly different notion of informal employment. We use the NSS data where persons are working in enterprises below 10 workers and above 10 workers. That's the one we used in our original study, and on that basis we found that the services sector is actually has more number of people working in smaller enterprises and informal enterprises. So manufacturing, non-trade services and construction dominate urban informal employment. I think this is quite well established. Even though there is some pickup in the, don't get confused about, one thing is about regular employment and casual employment. You know, in the NSS regular employment, it includes also if somebody is employed on a contractual basis, if he is getting on a regular wage, he is actually considered as a regular employee. So regular employment doesn't mean it's a permanent ASI kind of employment. Okay. So next we looked at the education skill composition. Then the services sector has greater proportion, 60% of the workers with secondary education. And manufacturing, 54% of the workers were having below secondary education. So manufacturing sector is much less skill demanding, that's what we argued. And also construction is dominated by casual workers with below primary education. And also the Planning Commission report suggested that it is expected to create highest incremental casual employment up to 2022. So basically, this construction and manufacturing is going to be the job creators. Then question is one of the development of skilled workforce. So construction industry requires large number of carpenters, masons, plumbers, construction machine operators. Manufacturing requires wide variety of industry-specific skills, technicians in garment, textiles, auto component industries. Services face shortage of skilled professionals. This is all service IT associations are also making this point quite well. Given this, then what is the current state of vocational education? This is VET, vocational education and trade. Here, that's the study by Tushar Agarwal. Comes into the picture, and he interestingly finds that in the age group of 50 to 29, proportion of population having formal vocational education has actually declined in 2009 to 2% from 2.4% in 2004. Similarly, proportion of non-formal has actually also declined. This is contrary to the expectation with the given skill demand. Actually, you want the proportion of with formal education is actually should increase, and also it has declined in absolute terms as well. Of course, the Prime Minister's objective is to create skilled workforce about 500 million people. Other interesting things is found that unemployment rate among persons with formal vocational training is nearly 24%. So high unemployment of this. And also the 66th round asked an interesting question whether the vocational training was ever helpful in getting a job. And we found that 29% of the individuals said that they have not benefited from training. So in this context, natural question is asked, is there a mismatch between when most of the majority of jobs are actually created in the informal sector, what kind of skills are required by these people who are coming into the urban areas, migrants who come in search of jobs, and are they sufficiently skilled? So what is there? What are the kind of facilities are there for the vocational training for the informal sector? So this I just skip these. These are the growth rates. I just these numbers are there, and also any deep questions about numbers and projections, I suggest that should be addressed to Professor Amitabh Kundu. So, but the basic story is say that it is actually the services sector growth is not actually accelerating. Okay, so the structure of employment is also, we see the services sector, actually the share of services sector in total urban employment has actually declined by 1 percentage point. At least you can say it is actually stagnating. In the construction and manufacturing together have actually have increased their share in urban employment. Okay, this is consistent with this is what I said earlier. Okay, so then the question, I made 2 basic points. One is incentives for firms to hire apprentices and trainees. So this is then what kind of incentives? This is the question of legal reforms. Also, I am not going to talk about, this is not the right occasion to talk about labor reforms. But the Apprentices Act enacted in 1961, actually I looked at it. It is quite very detailed. Actually, it was earlier it was protected to regulate the training opportunities so that the apprentices are not really exploited by firms. That was the intention behind the implementation of the Apprentices 1961 Act. But actually it served the opposite. It's considered it's a failed act. Actually firms now are reluctant to employ apprentices in large numbers. Only Maruti also tried that exercise. Maruti had employed large number of apprentices, but they started actually demanding regular work, regular jobs. So this is the also unfortunately recently the ministry was trying to reform the Apprentices Act, and it gives the suggested, this is the kind of signals we give. So initially we suggested to the committee suggested companies should absorb 50% of the trainees that they hire, and there was a hue and cry. I think there was later signals from the planning commission. Later I think Montek Singh Ahluwalia also gave his reluctant, his opposition to this kind of idea, and later the labor ministry backtracked and then said that okay, you don't have to give 50% of the jobs to trainees, but you should just need to give preference to them. I think I don't know that I have not been able to track. It was before the cabinet committee for the approval of the modification of the Apprenticeship Act 1961. Later I have not followed what exactly final shape it took, but the newspaper report suggests that now the labor ministry is not going to insist on reservation. It simply said that some preference should be given to them. But still I think this is the one issue that you need to look into it. There is an anecdotal evidence that there are there are ITIs both in rural areas, industrial training institutes in rural areas as well as in urban areas. I heard a story that there are large companies which are going to actually rural areas to hire apprentices. They are not interested in hiring people in ITI from urban areas, but one possible reason is that retraining them and managing disputes with them, managing them is much easier, remolding them if they take it from the rural IITs. And also rural IITs, almost all seats are full because there are hardly any other educational opportunities, therefore those seats are really full. There are a lot of seats are vacant in the urban ITIs. Okay, but this is one area I think one should need to look into how to create an environment where firms have an incentive to take without a commitment to absorb them as permanent workers. Then is there a flawed VIT system? Is another question. There are entry barriers. So there are a large number of people. If construction and manufacturing is going to create a lot of jobs, and these people are less education are going to come into this picture. And then you look at the carpenters who would like to join the ITIs, the minimum requirement is class 8th and class 10th, enrolling in craft and apprenticeship paths. to why a carpenter needs minimum 8th standard and with science as the compulsory subject. Why? So therefore, but look at the private initiatives are there. There are certain private initiatives like Tata's, Reliance, L&T have initiated where they do not impose these minimum condition, but also the duration is much less. You just give, they run a course for 6 months and 1 year, for here the duration is much longer. So therefore, there here I think this issue of duration as well as prerequisites, there is it creates a kind of entry barrier for informal sector workers with those who are with less education. So I think I will stop at this point. These are some of these issues that needs to be taken into account. Thank you.